Okay, so welcome everybody to today's presentation. I am going to do a brief introduction of our guest speaker, and then I will hand it over. So I wanted to welcome Shulamit to present today. We were really looking forward to this presentation. So she is the entrepreneur's therapist. She works with women business owners to care for their mental and emotional well-being and their money psychology in an era of relentless stressors that can make you want to lose your crap on the daily. So we welcome you and we're really looking forward to this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lori. And isn't it like, like it just seems like it has been on and on and on since pre-pandemic, there have been so many things that we've been facing just as humans, but as business owners on top of it all. It's been really tough. Yeah. Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm going to enter the presentation mode and now share the screen. So you can see now, keep your CEO self in the driver's seat. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. And when folks come in, Lori, I'll ask you a favor. If there's stuff that's happening in the chat, would you keep an eye on that and signal to me if there's something that I don't see?
Yes, for sure. No problem.
Thank you. Because it's hard to see all the things at the same time. So this is Keep Your CEO Self in the Driver's Seat, how to care for your mental and emotional well-being as an entrepreneur. And as Lori said, my name is Shulamit Levtov, and you're welcome to call me Shula for short. And my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the entrepreneur's therapist. So what you can expect today, I'll do a little bit of housekeeping, a brief land acknowledgement. Then I will talk about what mental health has to do with business, the basics of your mental health plan, and how to use it. So I invite participation. That's really important. And I'm just opening up the chat so that I can put, there's a link to the worksheets there for you so that you can use those to follow along. And I will be dropping other links in the chat. So for the recording, I'm assuming, Lori, you will release those with the access to the recording so people can refer to them. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you're concerned about taking notes and would rather pay attention, I'll be dropping links in the chat with extra information, like in-depth information about the things that I'm just briefly talking about. So you can use that to keep track and you don't have to take notes, because since we're talking about your mental and emotional well-being and some of the aspects of the challenges that you might face in the course of your day as an entrepreneur, you might have feelings about that. And so this is recorded, which means that you can step away without ever being concerned that you might be missing something, because you can refer back to the chat, to the recording. So I invite you to take good care of yourself, have your camera on or off, take breaks, move, stand up, whatever it is you need to do to take care of yourself while you're listening. And also, I'm open to questions throughout the presentation. You can pop them in the chat. And Lori will help me acknowledge you and open the mic for you to chime in with your questions. So this land acknowledgement is part of my response to the calls to action from Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And I invite you to treat every land acknowledgement you hear as a call to action as well. And one of the actions that you can take today, that's easy, we can all do this, is find out whose land we're on. And I'm putting the links in the chat so you can find out whose land you're on. And you can share what you learned with friends and colleagues about whose land you're on, and maybe even learn about the people whose land it is and share what you learn about that as well. So this is a map of the land that I'm on. And I'm an uninvited guest on land that has been inhabited for 10,000 years and is still inhabited today by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Kayentihaka peoples. And this land supports my mental health and my work. And I'm so grateful to the ancestors who cared for this land and its waters, and those who care for it now, because like, I just don't know how I would do the work I do without the support of the natural environment around me. So I'm the entrepreneur's therapist. Well, what the heck is that? And who the heck is that? So when I went back to school as an older person to get my master's in counseling, when we go to school, they teach us how to be really good at our work, but they don't teach us anything about a business and how to run a business, how to make money. And so as soon as I graduated from my master's and opened my private practice, I started business training, business coaching, masterminds, hanging out with entrepreneurs. And there were no other therapists in any of these environments. So at the same time as I was like cultivating my business mind, I was also hearing from other business owners about the emotional ups and downs of running a business, of being self-employed. And, I kind of took my mental health mind and my entrepreneur mind, and it was like the old commercial. You all are old enough to remember the Reese's peanut butter cup commercial where they collide the peanut butter and the chocolate and they go, hey, this tastes really good. And it was, my mental health mind and my therapist mind went together and went, hey, this is a really important intersection. And there's no one that I'm aware of who's working to support entrepreneurs with their mental health. And that's how the entrepreneur's therapist was born. So as we enter into this conversation about mental health and entrepreneurship, it's really important to keep in mind that it's normal to have emotional and mental health challenges because they are inherent in the work that we do. So when you're having a hard time, nothing's wrong with you. It's what you would expect given the conditions of your work. You know that we're leaders working alone under high stress, high demand, and having a tough time is the natural consequence of those circumstances. And so we know, like I said, mental health challenges are inherent in entrepreneurship. In our personal experience, I'm sure there are many of us here today or listening who've had a tough time with their emotions or their mental health over the course of their business. So we have the experience, but also so does the academic and professional literature. And I'm going to talk about that now. So just one example, Michael A. Freeman is a psychiatrist and a psychologist in the US, and he could be considered the grandfather of research into entrepreneurship and mental health. And in 2015, he found that entrepreneurs have a higher prevalence of mental health challenges than the general population. So then you see on the slide here, the Canadian example, the Canadian Mental Health Association surveyed 476 entrepreneurs about their mental health in 2019. And they found, among other things, you can see some of the statistics here on the slide, but more importantly, they found that 46% of the Canadian entrepreneurs surveyed reported that mental health issues interfered with their ability to do their work. That's a really big deal.
And Shula, this was before the pandemic, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes. And that's a really, it's important to recognize that the pandemic has had its own impact that complicates this, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to, thank you for bringing this up. I think it was Mary Margaret, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. That it was tough already. And that it's inherently tough, and that the pandemic, hi Teresa, welcome, and that the pandemic has made a tough thing already tougher. So here is a blog post that I wrote about entrepreneurship and mental health that gives you all kinds of statistics and other information about this, and you can check that out if you're interested. So in my work as a therapist for entrepreneurs, I've observed 7 factors that are challenging folks' mental health in the course of their work. And I have a whole blog post that covers all the details of these challenges, and I'm going to put that in the chat there so that you have it to refer to. And I'm going to talk about each of these just briefly. And I invite folks to open their mic and chime in as they, as we go through these one by one to offer your insights or contributions as we go. So isolation, I always start with because it's the issue that most women business owners I know and work with talk about. And we know that social isolation is one of the social determinants of health, one of the non-lifestyle factors that have an impact on our physical and mental health. And we know this because we've all been through extreme isolation during the pandemic. And the US Surgeon General, you might have noticed, I think it was about 2-3 months ago now, stated that loneliness poses health risks that are equivalent to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. And content advisory. I'm not going to talk in detail about mental health challenges in this workshop, and I will mention some things that may be upsetting to some people. So I'm going to pause and just take a breath to give folks a chance to make a choice about what they want to do around stuff that might be tough to hear. So speaking about isolation, it's also a major risk factor for suicide. And we know that suicide and depression occur at very high rates among entrepreneurs. So, this is like a double, triple, quadruple whammy for us because we're isolated, unsupported, don't have peers to talk to. And this has an emotional impact in addition to having the other impacts. It's also lonely at the top. We're leaders surrounded by people, but we're holding space for these folks. And who holds space for us, right? It's not appropriate for us as leaders to expose the folks around us to demand to hold space, emotional space for us, right? So there's people all around us, but yet we have to do the emotional labor of holding our own stuff for another time. And that adds to the impact of isolation. The hustle, also known as systems of oppression, much of the stress that we experience as women, but discount because we're unaware of it because it's invisible unless we stop to think about it, comes from systems of oppression that exert invisible but deeply felt and harmful pressures on us. And we absorb many truths from these systems without even knowing where these truths came from. So they affect our mindset. For example, around productivity, around how much work do we have to do, around rest, and is rest even a thing for entrepreneurs, right? And then we have institutional expressions of oppressive systems that put barriers in our way as well. For example, women who are looking for funding from institutions will find that they're turned down when they have an equally valid proposal. And of course, the more you don't fit the cis het white middle-class English-speaking graduate school educated male, the more difficult it is for you and the more barriers you will experience, right? And so one of the really harmful things that I see showing up under systems of oppression, that's an aspect of systems of oppression, is hustle culture. And here's a blog post, I've just put it in the chat. Because the whole idea is around hustle culture is the extractive focus on production at all and every cost. So we see, the term human resource, we see this in business where when you're a 9-to-5 employee, that your value to the business is in what they can extract from you. And I have found, working with the entrepreneurs that I do, that often we will reproduce this kind of extractive productivity in our relationship to ourselves and our businesses and end up working far more than we need to or intended to. So a little side note, there is a survival issue around hustle culture. Our business survival can often feel like life or death, right? If our businesses don't survive and thrive, we can't pay our bills. And so for many women in this world, we're one paycheck away from poverty. And when we live in that reality, fears around business survival are very real and can drive us to work. And there's a time when that's appropriate in your business and a time when it's not. And it's important to think, to kind of be aware of how these are all at play and how they are driving us, and to be curious and to think about it, so that, because there's times when it's appropriate to work hard and times when it's harmful, right? The third factor, VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And this is just a fancy term for what we're going through on a daily basis as entrepreneurs. We have the ups and downs, especially COVID and post-COVID, where the market and the economy, we don't even know what's going on, and it's up and down. So it's uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. It's volatile. Things are going up and down. It's complex in the sense that there's a lot of information to take in, and it's ambiguous, the information. There's no clear-cut answer. We have to take this complex information and do our best to make our own decisions and then carry forward on the basis of these decisions, which is always kind of a leap of faith in any case, because of how complex and uncertain and ambiguous the information is that we deal with. So this is our day-to-day. And then we have constant adversity, constant challenges. We have to make decisions. We're always facing problems and new and ever-changing conditions and wearing all the hats, right? CEO, bookkeeper, PR, marketing, admin, customer service, all that stuff. And all of this results in cognitive fatigue and depletes our physical and emotional resources. There are many, many barriers to women entrepreneurs for support. I like to say entrepreneurial poverty is a thing. We're not all Jeff Bezos and Galen Weston, right? It's hard. Cash flow is really hard in a business, in any business. And finding after-tax cash to cover therapy can be like, after-tax cash, what the heck is that even, you know? And it's not only at the level of direct mental health support, but also the support that we need in business. Like, for example, for me, my assistant is an important aspect of my mental health care because there's someone there to help me. And just knowing that I have someone to help me makes a big difference. But if you haven't got the cash to pay someone to help you, that's also a barrier to the professional support that you need. And another barrier is stigma. I thought this was pretty powerful. The Hustle is an online business magazine, and they reported that 84% of the business owners they surveyed say that stigma exists around mental health challenges within the business community. So there's stigma in the general population. We know this, right? Like Bell Let's Talk, it makes it very clear year after year what kind of a stigma there is in the general population around mental health, but even more so amongst business owners. Connecting our self-worth to our success is a common human foible. It's, we connect our sense of self-worth with our role and doing well in our role. And when we do well in our role, whatever that is, in this case, it's owning a business, but it could be as a parent or in a career for someone who's not a business owner. When we do well in that role, we can tell ourselves good things about ourselves, and then we feel good. And when we do poorly in that role, we tell ourselves bad things about ourselves, and then we feel bad. And this is even more the case with didn't mean to do that. This is even more the case with entrepreneurs, that the ups and downs really take their toll on us. And we often find ourselves telling us stories about what a crappy business owner we are, or how bad we are at money, or how we don't know enough about marketing to make a go of things. And then we feel crappy. And so the emotions related to our successes and failures really toss us around. And so separating your self-worth from your success takes a lot of inner work. So I'm not like saying, oh yeah, just separate your self-worth from your success. However, because it plays such a significant role for folks, I name it so that you can know that it's an aspect of your experience that can have an impact on your mental and emotional well-being, and you can be curious and look into possibly getting support for separating the two and working with the emotional volatility. We also have a predisposition to mental health challenges as entrepreneurs. As I mentioned, research conducted in both the US and Canada and also the UK has documented the mental health challenges experienced by entrepreneurs. And you might remember that I cited Freeman's research in 2015 that said that we have a greater prevalence of mental health challenges than the general population does. And also we bring our own life experience to business. Some of us come to self-employment as a way to improve our mental health because we were in toxic workplaces, or because our mental health needs, our workplace was great, but the demands of the structured 9 to 5 were difficult to accommodate given our needs around, say, mental health or disability, chronic illness, all those kinds of things. So there are kind of two aspects of mental health challenges that are unrelated to business, right? We have our life experience, and then we have some of the reasons or some of our predisposition that come together to make it even more challenging around mental health in business. And then the secret or invisible seventh factor is that all these 6 amplify one another. And that fact is often lost on us. If you think about the straw that broke the camel's back, the straw, one straw that broke the camel's back, except that camel already had 2 tons of straws on its back. It wasn't that one straw. It was the combination of all the other straws plus this last one that did the poor camel in. And that's what we often see as entrepreneurs, is just the one straw in front of us, and fail to realize that there are a bunch of other straws on our back. That's how these 6 factors all come together in this invisible 7th factor. The effects of chronic stress accumulate, and each new stressor exacerbates things, and then they all combine. Each element has its own impact, and then that it also makes the impact of the others more powerful. So I'm going to stop sharing now and open the floor for a little bit of feedback around maybe what you're noticing, what you're thinking and feeling about these challenges to your mental and emotional well-being. If you recognize them, if anything comes up for you around it, the floor is open. You can just open your mic and go ahead.
Or if anybody wants to use a text chat too, you could do that, and
Yes.
I could watch that too.
Yeah, I just want, sorry I missed the beginning. I got distracted.
Okay.
But from what I caught, I really appreciate what you're saying. Like, I've been a business owner for 8 years now. And before that, I guess I've never really admitted this to people, but I guess I struggled with mental health. And so what you're saying, like the combination of those two, and then on top of that, being a mother, like just my own personal issues, being an entrepreneur and being a mother is just like overwhelming. And so I really appreciate what you're trying to do. Like like I just see I'm not familiar with you and what you do, but I'm just, from what I'm seeing right now, this is such an interesting angle, I guess, on mental health and pairing it with the business side. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm appreciating how you're talking. I don't even bring in motherhood, which could be an additional factor, or parenting. Like, if you're a primary caregiver, like I don't even know how people do it. It's yeah. And what you're pointing out, if you missed the very beginning, ultimately, when we have a hard time in our businesses, there's nothing wrong with us. It makes complete sense that we would have a hard time, because just look.
Right.
That's why I go through these 7 factors, because so many people come to me, so many of my clients come to me sick and burnt out and really struggling emotionally and blaming themselves for this. Oh, it's my fault because I didn't take good enough care of yourself. Well, no, actually, it's not your fault. It's the impact of the hard work that you're doing.
So is it wrong to say then, so you're saying nothing is wrong with us?
Yes.
But could we say what's wrong is how we're handling it?
Not even. What's wrong is the assumption that we can evade the impact of the work that we're doing.
Right.
We will be affected. It's just a question of when and to what degree.
Right.
And so, yes, go ahead, Mary Margaret.
And if I may, knowing when to reach out and get some help, I think that's really critical. And I think that lots of times, especially with women, because of who we are, we tend to try to convince ourselves that we can do it all ourselves. And it's
And
hardly ever true, right? I mean, that's why Paro is so valuable to so many people, because you then have a business counselor or business growth advisor who's going to help you to share some of that stuff. I mean, and to get you some support if that's what you need. But I think it's really important, and I do think that there is still just a huge stigma around, suggesting that we can't handle it all.
There's a lot of social expectation, right? And our identity as women or femmes often depends on our capacity to care for and do the emotional labor for others, and to take care of everybody else. And so, there's a whole identity issue around when starting to say no, starting to put boundaries, starting to say, hey, I'm not capable anymore of doing all this, and it never was right that I should be doing all this. It opens up a whole can of worms, and normalizing these things is what then empowers folks to take the risk of reaching out. If people believe that we should be doing everything, then they're just going to be shaming and blaming themselves and not reaching out for help. And that's part of why I do the work I do, is so that folks know this is normal. It's what you can expect given what you're trying to do, and that it's not a personal failing.
Yeah, I think too, if I could, Shula, I think this whole concept of considering mental health as an important part of being an entrepreneur, not only have we really not discussed today, and I'm not assigning fault or responsibility for that at all, being a mother, being a wife, being a daughter, sometimes the meat in that sandwich, plus being a homeowner, like just doing all the stuff.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. Yeah. I'm going to share the screen again. And so, if the essence of resilience, both personal and in business, is being resourced and prepared, like that's what it is. So Teresa, you were asking the question, does that mean that we haven't been handling it right? I think we've all been doing our very best. And one of the things that we're missing is the understanding that it's a muscle. Resilience is a muscle, and it's a skill, not something we're innately born with. Although, again, our access to privilege has a significant impact on our capacity to learn and use resilience skills, but they're skills. It's not something we're born with. And so the essence of resilience is being resourced and prepared. And in business, how we address risk, how we recognize and address risk, and how we get our crap together to determine a forward direction and ensure our growth in our businesses, we have a business plan. And business plans have a marketing plan and a financial plan and a cash flow forecast, all on purpose to help us grow and address risk. And so if mental health risks are inherent in entrepreneurship, and our business plan addresses all the other risks with a marketing plan and a financial plan and all that stuff, can you guess where I'm going with this? Business plans should have mental health plans for the founder as an integral part. And so I've been teaching this methodology of a mental health plan as an integral part of your business plan and business process for about 3 years since it first occurred to me. And here's how we do it. Now, I'm giving you a summary of what happens normally in a 4.5-hour retreat, virtual or in person, where people build their plans and start implementing them and leave with something that they can use. But you've got the worksheets. And Lori, would you do me a favor and grab the link from the worksheets at the very top and put it in the chat again so that Teresa can have it?
Yeah, for sure, no problem.
Thank you. You've got the worksheets. I'm going to give you the outline, and your job would be then to go away and use the worksheets to create your plan. So the essence of a mental health plan is this. As an integral part of your regular business planning and performance assessment, you identify your lead and lag indicators for your mental and emotional well-being. You assess their performance regularly, like you do with all the other key performance indicators in your business. And then you adjust your strategies, the tactics and actions that you're going to take as a function of your performance assessment. That, in a nutshell, is a mental health plan for yourself as a business owner. And let's break it down. So a lead and a lag indicator, first, a lead indicator is the action or the strategy that you take, and the lag indicator is the outcome. So one way to envision this is to think about old school salespeople who used to have to knock on doors to sell, and they were given a list of names and addresses, and they knew that they had to knock on 100 doors in order to sell, say, one vacuum. So knocking on 100 doors, that's the lead indicator. That's the one the person knows that if they're going to sell one vacuum, they have to knock on 100 doors. That's the lead indicator, the action. And the lag indicator, or the outcome, what they desire, is to sell one vacuum. So lead indicators come first, lag indicators come afterwards. Lead indicators are the actions, lag indicators are the outcomes. So I'll make this a little bit clearer as we apply it to mental and emotional well-being. Lead indicators are things we can control and things we can't. These are two categories of lead indicators for your mental and emotional well-being. The things we can control are usually the actions we take to care for ourselves, like eating meals, spending time with friends, taking time to move, connect with nature, connect with a sense of meaning and purpose. And the things we can't control are external circumstances, like the 7 factors that we talked about earlier, and there they are again, right? This is one of the lead indicators, one of the things that we cannot control. Another lead indicator, lead indicators are the actions that we take. And these 3 principles can frame for you the actions that you take to care for your mental and emotional well-being. And I'm just getting the link for this and putting it in the chat. No. So this post describes in detail what these 3 principles of stress resilience are and how to apply them. And there's information in your worksheet about how to identify for you what are your actions that you take to soothe your body and your nervous system, to discharge and your emotions, to discharge your body, your nervous system, and your emotions, and to nourish your body, your nervous system, and your emotions. And so why I teach these 3 principles that you can use to inform what actions you take is that rather than being prescriptive, because not everything works for everyone. Deep breathing, no, not everybody likes it. Hot baths, not everybody likes it. Going to worship service, which is a nourishing activity, doesn't work for everybody. Playing, what's it called? The Frisbee, the Frisbee games on the weekend that you see people out playing. It looks like a lot of fun. And for some people it really works for discharging, but for others, no, right? It depends on your mobility and things like that. So you can look at what you're already doing that fit into these categories, which helps you make sense as a business owner with already too many things to do, rather than adding things to your list, to look at what you're already doing and identify what fits into these 3 categories and continue to do those, but in a in a strategic way with awareness. And as I've said, this is covered in great detail in the handout. And so if you have questions about it, you can look at the handout. And I invite you to consider that rest is a lead indicator. And by rest, I don't mean sleep. I really mean rest. And it's a really holistic approach. Tricia Hersey is the woman behind the NAP Ministry, which is an account on Instagram. And her book is called Rest is Resistance. And I put the link in the chat. And that's a really good account to expose yourself to, or a really good book to read to help you think critically about what rest means. And I'm going to stop sharing and invite folks to ask any questions about lead indicators. Anything that you need to understand the idea so that you can use it.
I just want to say that that's a great idea about putting that into the business plan. I just want to go back to that and just say, yeah, wow, something that you never think of, right? And it's just part of, yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to say that. So I found it really interesting.
That growth wheel circle that that is, Pero uses that growth wheel, and it has all the different pies. But
Yeah.
where slice for mental and emotional well-being, it's just not in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not only Pero, that's not only the growth wheel, that's across the board.
Well, we are, if I could, Shula, just for a minute, because we are constantly sort of revising and updating our delivery of some of our biz camps. And we are just in the process of one of those now, where our clients are all Indigenous women.
Mm-hmm.
And that is for now an 8-week proposition, but we don't even get to the business plan
Right. Yeah.
now until I want to say week 5, because we spend so much time on self-preparation, self-awareness, self-care, all of those things. So while we're not, we don't have something built into our business plan yet around mental health, I think we are, sort of addressing that in some other ways. And those are becoming much more prominent, because we did some of our own research that really pointed to the dramatic effect that the pandemic has had on women in particular.
Yes, women in particular. Yes, yes, yeah. Yes, and I must say, Pero does stand out. Rise is another one. There are what my experience is that the women-oriented organizations that are working in business incubation are much more aware of the mental health impacts and do talk about it in the process of their business support for their participants. And they stand out as exceptions. They really do, because it's not common. Yeah. And that's part of why I think that Pero, this is not the first presentation that I've done for Pero in the webinar format. And it's not, I think it speaks to Paro's orientation toward concern for these things that makes them open as an organization to having me speak. And it's not about me personally, it's about the principle that there's not, folks who say yes to conversations about mental health are already thinking about it, Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to share my screen again. So lag indicators are how you're thinking and feeling as a result of your actions and of external circumstances. So it's basically your indicators of how you're doing well, and your what we might call symptoms of, which is really what we usually notice when the crap hits the fan. Trouble sleeping, trouble with digestion, trouble thinking and making decisions, trouble with focus. Those are things we really notice because we don't like them. And they are important to be aware of them as they show up. But also it's important to be aware of when we're doing well, what to look for when we're doing well, and how to do more of what helps us do well. And that's the purpose of having a regular, to understand what your lag indicators are. Because everybody's is different. When you're tanking, it's different for you than it is for your neighbor. And when you're doing well, it's different for you than it is for your neighbor as well. So becoming familiar with these is really important. And becoming familiar with them early on, as opposed to when the crap has already hit the fan and you just want to burn your business down, because it's really tough to come back from that early intervention. Interventions that we make early on are much more powerful and much more effective than the same intervention later in the process, when we are more and more struggling. So how do you use your mental health plan? First of all, what it's for. So it's important, and we talked about this a little bit at the halfway point. You know, it's not about what we do, like that if we only do things well enough, if we only care for ourselves enough, that if we only do it the right way, that we won't feel the impact of the work. Because having a mental health plan doesn't prevent you from having a hard time. What it does is it gives you resources, strategies that you can use to care for yourself in an ongoing way, that brings, so that your baseline, instead of having your baseline be like next, you know, everything's just right here, it can be sort of down here somewhere, so that when the crap hits the fan and it comes up, it doesn't come all the way up over your head. It only comes up to a manageable level, right? So there are two aspects to the implementation of your mental health plan. One is that it helps you keep your baseline level of activation down. And it also gives you things to do when the crap hits the fan. And caring for yourself in this systematic and ongoing way, when I say keep your baseline level down, is mitigating the impact of when you have a hard time. But you'll still have a hard time because we're doing hard work. It's a myth to think that we can avoid what it means to be human, because being human means experiencing hard times and having difficult emotions. And as entrepreneurs, it's just more for us. And so the reason to care for ourselves is not so much to make our difficult feelings go away, but rather to give ourselves care when we're having a hard time. So how do you use your plan? Once you become familiar with your lead and lag indicators, you make a checklist of them, and you use that checklist to check in on them regularly, assess their performance, and adjust as necessary. So I use the 12-week year planning system, and so I do a weekly review every week. And for me, it's just a 5-minute addition to my weekly review. So here's what it looks like when I do so MH stands for mental health. You can see I've got my lag indicators on the left, and this is just I do it very, what's the word, in a very analog way, pen and paper. Lag indicators on the one side there, and you can see like I was very tired and very sad one of the days on that week. My lead indicators, I went through the 7 factors and how they were affecting me that particular week. And then you can see that I wrote down some of the things that I did under the 3 principles. There's a soothe and nourish, and there's discharge. So not every week do I fill in every category. So you can see that it's just brief here. And I'm looking at, these are the things that I did this week that led to how I feel. And how I feel is over here. That particular week, there weren't any lessons for me. There wasn't anything that wasn't working in particular. And I also included wins. I like to celebrate what's working. And so I put the wins on my page at the bottom. And so based on this, I decided, because I was feeling very tired and very sad, that as I looked at the coming week, there were certain things that I wanted to do, like get to bed early. And I didn't write that here on my sheet. I put it in my calendar every day, that my calendar would pop up and remind me, oh yeah, start your bedtime ritual a bit earlier tonight, like at around 8:30 instead of 9:30. So that I'm going to have, that's a strategy, a lead indicator for how I'm going to feel, my lag indicator at the end of this week. Well, and during the week, right? Because I'm going to get more sleep. So in theory, I would be less tired. So I'm gonna just say a couple more things, and then we can go for questions about how to use the plan, but I'm gonna stick these in the chat. There are tons of free resources on my blog. I invite you to subscribe to my newsletter or to listen to my podcast, because I'm talking about this stuff all the time, and lots of information and tools, and it's all free. And on LinkedIn as well, or Instagram, I invite you to follow me. And I love to chat with folks. So if you feel like you want to DM me through LinkedIn or Instagram, I'd be happy to hear from folks about how questions they have about this, or how they're implementing it, challenges that they might have. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and open the floor for questions about clarifying lag indicators and how to use your plan, or any other kind of feedback or questions that you might have.
Sorry, so on your page, your weekly page that you write your lag and your lead, what else did you write at the bottom? What was that?
Let me show myself view.
Wins?
Here's a more recent one where I did it more in detail because I had more time that day. So I do my wins.
Right.
And that's all my business wins, but celebrating wins is such an important part of business because we often focus on what didn't work. But I also looked at what isn't working, because that informs what I need to do differently the following week. And so here is my barometer check, where I went through the 7 factors and how they were affecting me.
Mm-hmm.
So each week I use the outline, but it looks, how I do it is a little bit different depending on my mood. For example, this was a kind of a week. And so I wanted to talk about the things that I live for that are outside of work. And then I talked about my wins and what worked, and then what didn't work. And some of the other things that I put there was, what am I doing this for? Which is some of the motivating factors that affect, but the general outline is your the 7 factors and how they affect you, and what are the things that you've done for your soothe, discharge, and nourish, so that you know how they're affecting you, and so that you can make a plan for what's working. You do more of that, and what's not working is what you would need to think about doing differently or not doing at all in the coming week. And you just lather, rinse, and repeat. Is that making sense? Yeah. And I like to, for my own celebration, just because I find it motivating, every week as part of the 12-week year, they ask you to do your big 3. So I always write my big 3 and then check them off as part of my wins, because it, like the to-do list that's like never ending, to be able to say, yes, I got these things done this week, even though I have 100 million other things. Right. I set my priorities and got them done. And that also, right, like it nourishes us and sustains us for the journey of the hard work that we're having to do. Celebrating is really important.
Mm-hmm. So what can you share with me, Shula, what it is that you are talking about when you talk about the big 3?
So in the 12-week year and many of the like 90-day whatever planning processes, they invite you to identify what are the 3 big tasks that are going to move your business forward in this week. And that come hell or high water, those are the 3 things you're going to get done this week, or you're going to, you're going to move mountains to finish.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, because those 3 things should be related to your big picture goals.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And so I like to include in there, kind of like, I don't write it on the piece of paper, but you know, caring for myself should be on my big 3 every week.
I think, you know, for me, I must confess that I probably don't celebrate enough. I wonder how, or even, you know, acknowledging your wins as you describe it. And
Yeah.
I guess I'm just wondering how common that is.
It's very common. My clients, and in the masterminds that I've been in as well as a participant, the facilitators always have made sure to make celebration time, because they also have named that in the vast majority, we don't celebrate. We don't pay attention to our successes and our wins.
Yeah, because isn't there something like a negativity bias that we all have? That
Yes,
we always
yes.
lean towards the negative, or that's
Yeah.
how I
Yes.
totally resonate with that.
Yes. Well, and the thing is, it's evolutionary. We need to know where the danger is so that the bear
Right,
doesn't
that's
eat
what
us.
it is.
Yes. But here's the thing. That's only half the let me, if I can get this straight here. Here we go. That's only half the picture. Because what resources us to respond to the threats over here, the negative information that we retain, is the positive. So they don't, the idea around celebrating is not that it should cancel out any of the bad stuff, but rather that we need to see the whole picture, so that seeing the good stuff gives us the resources we need to address the bad stuff we see, the threats. So it's not canceling each other out, it's seeing the whole thing.
That's interesting. This was good. Thank you.
It was good. It's very good.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, this, I'm so glad that we got connected and you presented this today, because it's just stuff you don't really think of or talk about, or I don't know, any of that stuff, right? So this is really great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it was it World Mental Health Day yesterday, or
Yeah, it's Mental Health Week this week.
Okay, this week.
Is it? Oh, jeez.
Well, that worked out well.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Hey,
Was
Lori,
that
that
intentional?
Hmm. Yeah.
So really, my door is open. You're absolutely, I'll hand the mic back over to Lori, but my door is open. You're absolutely welcome to connect with me if you have questions or feedback, implementation, stuff you don't understand. Like, I love, in case you can't tell, I love talking about this.
Yeah.
So I'll hand
Well, you're very good at it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming in and talking to us today about this stuff. It's really important, and we'd welcome you back anytime. So thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining us today as well.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye for now.
See you.